everyone. Welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathy. I want to go over the West case. If you haven't been following the Trezell and Jacqueline West case, they are on trial for murder of Orrin and Orson West, who were 3 and 4 years old at the time they disappeared 2 years ago. December 21st is when they were reported missing in 2020. Jacqueline and Trezell were eventually arrested and are on trial today for the murder of these children. Their bodies have never been found. Jacqueline and Trezell are the adopted parents. They had fostered the boys and then adopted them. So I've been listening in as much as I can while I'm working today. I make a lot of phone calls during the day for work, so I am missing parts of it, but I want to get to you what I did hear so far in this case this morning via the audio that you can listen to via the court website. You are not allowed to record it, so I have to just take notes and tell you what I've heard. They did the opening statements. I did not hear that. I was working. But I did catch the first witness that came on the stand, and her name is Talia Arjo. I didn't get her last name exactly. She's the 911 dispatcher that took the call when Trezell called to report the boys missing. Now, at some point here, they do play the call, the 911 call. And basically, when Trezell calls in, he calls and says, I'm calling to see if anybody found or reported, something like that. 2 little black boys. My 2 sons are missing. I can't find them. Did anybody call? And she's like, no, where's your address? So they dispatch officers to come there while she's talking to Trezell on the phone. And direct examination of her, it was pretty brief. They basically said, yes, you work at Cal City, you are a dispatcher, and did you make a call to CPS while you were in the middle of this call or this case? After the officers got there, you were asked to do something, call CPS. She said, yes, I called CPS, spoke to a social worker, and they were called because the police officers wanted to verify the adoption. Cross-examination began, and she said that she had been there for about 5 years in 2020. They asked if there were any female officers. She said no. They asked if there was an officer by the name of Anthony. She said there was an Anthony Cabrillas. They said, is there any officers with the last name of Anthony? She said no. They said, do you also make business calls during the time while you're dispatching? She said yes. She says, did the department have a cell phone? She says she does not have one, but some of the officers do carry department cell phones. They also asked, do some of the officers sometimes use their personal cell phones for business calling? And she said, yes, that's not unusual. They do sometimes. They said, is it recorded at all? She said, no, wouldn't be recorded on their personal cell phones. First officer that was getting there was Officer Hansen, and he would be the lead officer that got there first, that was dispatched first. They asked her to call CPS. Like I said, this is the cross. She verified that again and said, yes, she called them. She said, how long did it take? They said it was a while, and they called me back, and they had to verify that these children were adopted by the Wests. There was also a note somewhere in this that says there was some video surveillance of the boys walking down the street. However, that's not in the report. The report was signed by somebody named Anthony. Then they called a second witness. So that witness was excused. They called a second witness. The second witness' name is Joshual Flores. Joshual Flores was actually with Officer Hansen. Officer Hansen was his training officer. At the time that this case started, when they arrived, Officer Flores, Joshual Flores, had only been working there for about 5 months. So he was still with his field training officer, Hansen. They went in there. They spoke with Trezell. They drove around up and down the streets in the area, talked to neighbors. They said no one had seen the boys. He had body cam on. So they were able to play the audio of the body cam. And the body cam with Trezell, he's explaining, I came in and out. I was collecting firewood from the empty field next door. The boys were in the backyard. They said, how long? It was like 20 minutes. He said he hadn't seen them for. Then they play the body cam footage of this officer talking to Jacqueline. And it's really bizarre. He tells her, I guess that comes up, they were wrapping presents or she was wrapping presents. And he tells her, okay, well, where were they? And she says, well, in the backyard. And he said, well, there's no footprints. There's no footprints. I'm really good at tracking footprints, and there's no footprints of these boys. They did not leave the backyard. He flat out says this right off the bat. He said, I saw where they were coloring, but that's it. And then he tells Jacqueline, I want to know the truth. And Jacqueline is like, well, if they didn't go at the backyard, they could still be in the house because that's the only way they could have got out of here. And he says, well, what do they do in the house? She said, well, sometimes they hide in cabinets. He said, did you check the cabinets? She said, yes, I did. It was a little off-putting. He was very, I know I'm going to get haters for this, but if you listen to it, you can interpret it. I don't know if you'll ever be able to listen to it because it's not being recorded, but it was very just accusatory towards Jacqueline. Like, you're lying. I want to know the truth. I mean, these people just reported a missing child. I don't know why they would jump to that right away. Seems a little odd to me, but we clearly need to hear the rest of the evidence and the rest of this trial. This officer has not been cross-examined yet. They went to lunch, and that's all we got right now. I'm going to post this, and I will do my best to get the second half up after work. I mean, I would think they clearly had plenty of evidence to bring this to trial. So it's very interesting, and I'm very curious to see what they have. Thanks for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm on my lunch break. They're on their lunch break, and I have to go back to work. So I'm going to post this ASAP. Thank you again. Bye-bye.